I think in some ways it was ahead of its time. People were a bit, you know, people would sometimes come backstage and say, "Why are you playing kebab house music?" Which is really insulting and stupid, but they wouldn't say that now. So it was a fusion of East and West, had a jazz element as well. So it was kind of high-end fusion, is what I'd like to call it. Fusion can mean the worst, horrible blend of music, or of course it can mean something else, can mean really good. Hopefully it's a good blend. I got clean and sober in 1986, and in a way, I mean, I kind of just working on the subway, on the underground, and I had no real plans to go and start playing music again. I was listening to lots of music, and I was never away from, I'd just finished an album called Psalms, so it's not like I'd really stopped doing stuff. And Neville Murray knocked on my door and said, "Don't you fancy putting a band back together?" And that was the Invaders Mark II. So in the 90s, so yet again, another new lineup. There's been a few, loads of players have gone through, probably, I'm not playing with that bloke again, but loads of players have gone through the band. And so we started it again in the 90s. Lots of success with it. We were on Island Records again and had some hit records, Jah Wobble, you know, Invaders of the Heart. And then I decided, we'd had a run and just it was at height, I decided I want to stop this now. Right, it's really good, not have an ever decreasing circles thing. I run a label, I'm always making different records. I'm going to go off and make some different records. And I'm going to come back to this at some point when it's correct. And this time's come simply because I happen to have another unit of very good musicians around me. And it's the musicians, in a way, are the most important ones to even make it work or not. Can you somehow make it work? Public Image single. Do 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 do. And yeah, I remember it was a different version, radically different, I think, to the version used on the actual album on Metal Box, as I recall. So I can't remember exactly how. I remember it was kind of some funny stuff with edits and it's a little bit more radical, as I recall. Gene October, Chelsea. I remember seeing him around a lot around the King's Road. Everyone would be up the King's Road in those days. And I remember him quite a lot of leads. I think to have leads, you've got to be a bit of front because you're a front man. So yeah, maybe, but it wasn't an unpleasant sort of bloke. Yeah. And they're still going, right? At Chelsea, yeah. Would make sense to get them here, I suppose. Really fascinating area. It was quite bohemian. The only other area a bit similar to it was maybe Notting Hill. It was very bohemian, crumbling Georgian sort of houses. Round Lots Road was a bit of a slum. No offence, I mean, look, I'm out the East End, you know. As rough places go, that was probably one of the more, obviously, rougher places in London, East London, and there was a lot more poverty there, generally, that side of town. But Fulham was quite a rough, it was just a regular kind of, it wasn't gentrified, it was a regular London kind of manor in those days. And Chelsea was it was a real mixed place. But what it did have, as the 60s and the 70s, as you went forward, it always had the arty thing, going back to Whistler. So you had an artist community in Chelsea. You had Cremhorn Bridge, railway bridge there. You had Cremhorn Gardens, and it was like a kind of fun fair kind of site there. I think they closed it down, it got too licentious. And so it always had this artist thing going back a lot of years. A lot of artists come here. You look at those buildings up Cheney Walk, they've got that Mediterranean seaside kind of look. It's kind of like a funny, almost like seaside town. But the punk thing came, that was the perfect breeding ground. I mean, this was the only area, maybe Portobello Road, you would open a shop like Sex, which went on to become, had been Let It Rock, Sex, and then Seditionaries. And at that time, East London, where I come from, was like, sort of, it wasn't a trendy. You had a few real trendy people like me. The Ace of Spades. It was just really. I liked it, Motörhead, because it was just. you know, I like it's like craft work or something. It's just rock, pure rock, reduced to a certain point, you know, to not a parody level almost, you know, but just a very pure point, you know. It's a very different. I liked all the with Hawkwind. I liked the kind of science fiction-y, kind of spacey, psychedelic thing that was going on with it, and that's what I still kind of a bit drawn that way. So that's why I liked it. I used to take it quite seriously, you know. And they had a slideshow of you know, a tree, beautiful atom bomb, you know, everything's, you know, finished, and then the tree grows back again and all that, you know. I think this is fantastic. I got a bit of a problem with drugs a long time ago, and I needed to raise some money to get down a pub, and so I thought, without thinking twice, I'll sell me bass, which is the bass that was used for play on the metal box. And they heard, and they, oh, you know, we'll have it. So I took it to them and sold it to them, and they were like, you know, is this really the one that's on metal box? I'm like, yeah, really? Yeah, give some money, you know. And yeah, give some money, and I'm saying, yeah, whatever, see you later. Down the pub, you know, gives us a drink, you know. Well, yeah. He was at college, Hackney College with John, Lydon. John got into Pistols, so Sid was left with me. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and I think he'd be playing Gooseberry a bit, and you know, and I think I was the short straw really. He would rather have been, you know, in the Pistols and all that. So I think it upset him a bit. He was a funny bloke, and his mum had been a junkie. She'd been on heroin, and she'd been in Ibiza and all that. And then come back to somewhere like Bristol and then Tunbridge Wells. So he had a bit of that, apparently, you know, a bit of an accent, like in Bristol, believe it or not, like, you know. And he'd come to East London. I got to know him, he was left with me, and this is a funny story with him, it's true. I don't think his mum, it turned out, even knew he was at Kingsway. He was getting some sort of a grant there. I suppose he would be seen now as what you call a vulnerable young adult, you know. But he was seeing a psychiatrist or something. He was some sort of problems. He was seeing a guy every week, or like some kind of counsellor guy, therapist kind of, what you call them now. And the bloke had asked Sid, John Beverley or John Ritchie was the names he went under. And this counsellor guy had said to Sid he wanted me to go with him to one of the sessions. And the reason is because Sid was talking a bit suicidal. So he wanted me there as his friend to help support Sid and prove to Sid there was something that was to be lived for, life was to be lived. It was not good to want to kill yourself. So me and Sid had a talk about this, and it was a bit wicked. We had a bit of a wicked game. So we go in there. Hello, Mr. Psychiatrist, Mr. Shrink, hello. This egghead guy, kind of typical Hampstead kind of guy. It's all great, all chatting. And he says to me, John, he says to me, he says, John, meaning Sid, he's talking very silly about wanting to end it all, and I want you as his friend to prove to him life there's something worth living for, you know? It must be something you can get into, movies or some enthusiasm for life, and that, you know, and that he's got something to live for. Can you say something? I said, well, I don't know if he has really. And this bloke goes, no, you can't. I said, well, I just don't know. I think suicide might be a valid option for him. So, you know, and I'm sorry, I support him. I'm not going to support you. And that was the, you know. And we were both really good. We really carried it up. And this bloke really, well, he's freaking out. I think he think I needed a psychiatrist as well. So that's me Sid's story. But my funniest Sid story, you know. I remember when he had hepatitis after he started doing the smack. I remember going to visit him with my mate Vince Bracken, who'd looked after him, and he's sitting up in an hospital bed with all the mask on because it was contagious. Mild May Hospital. I don't think it'd even be there now. And we went in there, and it's my memory. He's so childish. We walked in, and we hear he's really ill. We fire, and he starts firing. He's got a toy gun, firing darts at us. They've got the mask on. We've got a mask on. When he's firing these, you know, so childish but funny, you know. So yeah, that's Sid. And eventually he got in the Pistols and all that. So, you know, so but the thing about the suicide thing, the death thing, many a true word said in jest. I think he quite fancied, you know, I think there was part of him that had that kind of death wish. I mean, he was dead by 21 or something, wasn't he? So it's incredible, really, you know. Right, this is Aswad, drummy there. I think this might be my bass, because I think that's at the Fallout shelter. And this is actually, it's an Ampeg Scrollneck, one of the first basses ever made. And I was working in that studio at that time. So, you know, that was exactly that sort of time, 85. That was when I was doing Snake Charmer, had been done, and Neon Moon. And I used that Scrollneck on Neon Moon. So I think it might, funny enough, my bass. I've done sessions with drummer. He's a really good drummer. But what I remember with them, in 1979 at the Empire Ballroom in Leicester Square, they did one of the best ever dub shows. They did a show, and it had some dub towards the end of it. Absolutely fantastic show. They were really good. They had a great tune called Warrior Charge, and then they kind of reinvented themselves with Don't Turn Around, and they went down a more pop road, which I quite like. I quite like that stuff. But they were a really great band, young. They had a dubby sort of aspect to them. It was one of the best shows I ever saw. It was a very unusual venue because it was kind of a tourist kind of hangout, kind of like a bit naff, and they must have hired it. It was like a night, like a really late show. Like you know, you went in there at 1 a.m. at a show or something, and yeah, it was great. You know, he's a good drummer. You know, yeah. That's it. There you go. Do you want to take that? Do you know what? I didn't really pose for the photos. I was so thick you should have taken your shirt off. I didn't focus on the. You know what I mean?